when it comes to the late 70s through the 80s. Heavy on the prog. Love Wizards. If you caught last week's show, I was talking about Todd Rundgren. And this week there is another wizard that's coming to town. You might want to stick around because Rick Wakeman and I had the loveliest conversation. So let's kick things off. It's 8 o'clock here at WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 FM, 107.3 W297BM, as well as WUSB.FM. I just want to take a quick second to thank everyone who has been a part of my... If you also enjoy Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or Deep Purple, or Brian May and Queen, you might want to stick around until 10 o'clock tonight. This is a super special edition of Wax Tracks to the Max with your host, Verlaine Hell. I am here until 10 o'clock tonight, and then Guys Being Dudes are going to be here, I believe, for an extended show. I also want to say hello and thank you to Mr. Bob Longman, who supports my craziness, and we were just talking about one of Rick Wakeman's, I guess you would call him a colleague. So we're going to try to put together another interview with Dave Bainbridge coming up soon. But I'm so excited for this. So let's just get right into my interview with Rick Wakeman. Don't come up to the studio. He is not here because he's on tour. But this was just such an amazing experience.
The original wizard of the keyboards, Mr. Rick Wakeman.
Hi, this is Rick Wakeman, and you should be listening to WUSB in New York. Wax Tracks to the Max.
Thank you so much for joining me. I've actually tried to get
you.
I've been trying to get you on my show for a while.
You're very brave.
You don't scare me, this whole grumpier old man rock star thing. I'm like, Rick is the coolest guy that I have ever met.
Oh, it's good to be grumpy, though.
During pandemic, I would say I definitely turned into a grumpy old lady.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. The thing is, most things that happen in life do have a beginning and an end. And when something comes along that doesn't have an end, you've got no idea what on earth you're aiming towards. So it does tend to make a lot of people very grumpy.
But you have a lot of things to celebrate. So
yeah.
So should I be referring to as Commander Wakeman from now on?
I think Rick will do fine. Funny enough, when I got the CBE, my own band said, if you think we're going to call you Commander, you've got another thing coming. So I went, okay, that's fine. No, it was a lovely thing to go. I was very. I got a lovely phone call from my dear friend Brian May, because they gave Brian a CBE a few years back.
Exactly. So I was hoping that you were going to tell me that now you get to celebrate with Brian May on top of the Palace. I can picture him on the guitar and you up there with the keytar. What do you say?
Well, it sounds good to me. And I love working with Brian. He's just one of life's wonderful gentleman musicians. I mean, I'd love to. It'd be great actually to stand on top of the Palace and play God Save the Queen or something with him. But I think the Queen, aged 90, heaven knows what else she is now, probably wouldn't be overwhelmed anymore. Interestingly enough, she still has a bagpiper play outside her window every morning.
Very nice. If some way in reality or fantasy we could make this happen, which cape would you wear?
Well, I'd probably commission a new one with a royal insignia on the back.
Very nice. I was there at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame not only when Yes was inducted, but I was there when Brian May got to induct his friends, Def Leppard.
Oh, wow.
And I could see Brian May's hair from clear across the stadium, and the Zombies were on stage, and I told my friend, I said, listen, the only act that we have not seen yet tonight is Def Leppard. I said, do you want to be sitting up here in the nosebleed seats, or you want to be down there? And we ran as fast as you possibly could, and you actually see us for a split second during Pour Some Sugar on Me, and I think that my heart stopped for just a moment.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
So, what is the nomination process like, and what was it like, to I mean, I don't know if you get a phone call or an email from the Queen and says, hey, guess what?
It's usually, I'm told, a letter, but because of COVID and various things, it came in the form of a phone call from the Cabinet Office in Downing Street. And I thought it was a joke at first. I thought it was one of my friends playing a joke. So I sort of said, "Oh yeah," and they said, "Yeah, you're being recommended to the Queen for a CBE." And I went, "Oh, okay then." And I said, "Can I call you back?" They said, "We'll call you again a bit later." I said, "Okay." And I dialed the number to find out whose number was calling, and it came back as a number you couldn't get back on. So I checked it out, and it was indeed the Cabinet Office at number 10 Downing Street.
Oh my!
So goodness. I thought, oh dear, this is for real, and it was lovely, and that's how it came about. And as I say, I took a lot of ribbing from my own band, who said we refuse point blank to call you Commander. I went, okay. I said, what would you like to call me? And then they said this word, which I can't say on radio. They said, that's what we'll call you. And I went, okay.
Speaking of things that you say out loud in public, I was there in, when you got inducted with Yes, and I don't think that everything you said actually made it onto the HBO broadcast. So I was curious if you had run past the band and told them what you were going to say.
No, what happened was, I've got this strange thing about awards ceremonies. I was incredibly proud that Yes got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think it was long overdue, and I'm very sad that Chris sadly wasn't alive to be part of it, being the only founder member who'd been in every format of the band. So that was sad.
Yeah, but sometimes the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is very slow to catch up with the times. I mean, like,
yeah, when you look at bands like when you look at Deep Purple.
Todd Rundgren's only getting in just now, so.
Yeah, I know it is strange. Anyway, one of the things about the ceremonies is, and it's the same for all award ceremonies. I mean, I enjoy watching award ceremonies on the television and things, but the thing that always bewilders me are the speeches, because they're dreadful. They're really how many times can somebody thank their parents, their grandmother, the man who made them their first guitar, the person who introduced them to acting, whatever. I mean, it's phenomenally boring. And then thanking everybody who was in the film with them, or on the record or whatever it was, and you go, oh, this is so boring. And I'm afraid that the Hall of Fame in the speeches, it was no different. I mean, first of all, the audience, everybody there knows the history inside out, backwards, anyway of everybody. Plus, whoever's introducing the band does a bit of a potted history, so you've got everything. So there really is no need for the boring speeches afterwards. And I've been listening to some. I mean, I enjoy listening to Joan Baez. I thought she was great. I like Joan, but there was a thing of, I could hear this hum going around the auditorium. And what the hum actually was, it was people talking. Nobody's listening, they were just waiting for the band to play. or whatever band it was going to play. You just hear, it's just people chatting away. And I sort of was looking, we were all on stage, and I'm looking at the speaker going, well, I'd like to thank my father who supported me tremendously through my ongoing. Oh, this is so bad.
Did you know that Alex Lifeson was going to say something about how you inspired him to wear a cape?
No. Really?
I think your speech is the best one ever, but I also have to give Alex Lifeson an honorable mention before the whole blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what you're saying.
Well, what happened was I'm standing with John and Trev. Now, I'm known for doing a lot of comedy in the UK. I do a lot of comedy. I've had my own comedy shows, all sorts of things. And do my own stand-up and improv shows on TV and whatever. And Trev said, this is boring. Go for it.
If I had been drinking a beverage at the time, I would have been sputtering, especially that bit about the gopher on holiday.
Well, John, they said, go for it. I said, I can't. They said, go for it. So I went out and I thought, well, I'll do one line, see what happens. So I did one line, and what I call the audience hum stopped, and people started laughing, and I thought, they're listening, and it's great. So, I had a quick glance round at Trev and John, who were sort of egging me on, going, go on. So I did, and it wasn't meant to be disrespectful or anything at all. It was just my way of why did speeches have to be so boring? My son Adam, who plays with Ozzy Osbourne, I think, he said he met so many bands, Eddie Van Halen, so many people who said, thank heavens for your dad's speech. And it's such a wonderful thing, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I think sometimes the ceremonies need to be not so heavily formatted. They need to be.
I don't want to go off on my old lady rant about how sometimes they don't get it right and how so many bands that are deserving are not in there, and because of the voting committee, certain bands may never get in there. For example, Todd Rundgren is so disgusted that he's not going to attend.
Yeah.
But I have a funny story also. You said you got this phone call, from the office of the Queen. A friend of mine, Mr. Danny Miranda from Blue Oyster Cult, got a very similar phone call from Brian May about joining him for Queen on Broadway. And Danny Miranda hung up on Brian May because so he thought he was getting pranked.
Oh, brilliant.
So
does Brian know? Brian must know that, does he?
Oh, I'm certainly does. I can always get you a picture. Actually, I have a video clip because Danny Miranda has come on campus at Stony Brook because there is a very special member of the faculty. He used to be the former general manager of the station. He goes back with Stony Brook probably to the mid-'60s. Like, he's been friends with the guys from Blue Oyster Cult from the very beginning, like 67. He actually picked up a hitchhiking Joan Baez on campus.
Wow.
So there's just so much history associated with SUNY Stony Brook. Part of that is because of that radius clause in the Fillmore East. Stony Brook is 52 miles from New York City. So many bands played on campus, like Jefferson Airplane played to like 17,000 people, Jimi Hendrix, and pretty much everyone you could think of. But then, they changed the auditorium and everything. And I long for the days when they had really good concerts like that on campus.
Yeah,
All right. So I guess that last little bit got cut off right there. But Rick Wakeman was so much fun to talk to. And there's a couple of notes that I had to make to myself to go back and review. In case you're not sure what we were talking about there with Brian May playing on top of Buckingham Palace, let's just rewind it back a little bit and let's hear it from Brian May. What it was like. All those, how many times I've mentioned that I wish that I had a rock and roll time machine? Well, if I had one, this is definitely a stop. Go back. You know what? Let's choose Rick Wakeman on Ice, shall we? Going back to 1975. His son has made a prog playlist in his phone so that we drive around. I don't have to go put on this, put on that. And he put on some Yes, and he's like, Mom, it's an 18-minute song. I go, yeah, let's go. Let's make it loud. And I'm like, put on some Yes. He's like, no. I'm like, yes. He's like, no. I'm like, yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, 18 minutes for us, yeah, that's almost an introduction.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. Did you set a new world's record for finger motion during Catherine Parr? I watched that. I can't even move my fingers as fast as you do, more or less play a single note.
I was probably in a bit of a hurry. That's all. I've no idea. I mean, it's interesting that pieces like Catherine Parr or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I never knowingly go out, I'm going to play as fast as I can. I just play it if I think that the piece of music demands speed, then I'll give it the speed. And so I don't deliberately do things either incredibly slowly or incredibly quickly. It's just sort of how they feel. And when you get to my age, doing things incredibly quickly, some things that happens a lot, and with doing things incredibly slowly becomes more the norm.
I have played so much of your music on my show, as well as classic Yes, and I've done a couple of specials to honor Keith Emerson, as well as Bob Moog. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, because I saw the clip that you did for the Keith Emerson tribute concert to benefit Focal Dystonia, and actually when the CD finally came out, Mark Bonilla was my guest. And you said something about how I'm sorry, I don't even know if I can say this part out loud. You said that he would remain in your heart forever. Yeah,
Keith was. It was really quite funny actually, because for years during the 70s, the music press in particular used to write and make us out as incredible rivals, and in fact, in some cases that. There was a sort of a dislike between us and all that kind of thing, and hate, which was absolutely and utterly total rubbish. We used to meet up a lot, Keith and I, and he'd say, "Hey, did you see what you were meant to have said in Melody Maker last week about?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "And what you said about me and New Musical Express?" We just laughed. It was all totally made up.
Utter rubbish.
Yeah, and we used to go. He said, "But yeah, it's all good publicity, isn't it?" It was quite good fun. But there was a little story of a couple of years before Keith passed away. We were having lunch in London in a place called Morton's. It's a club with a beautiful restaurant at the top, and we were having lunch up there. And there was a few other people in the lunch, and there was a couple. A man and a woman, about, I suppose, the same ages as Keith and I, at another table. And they kept looking over, and we didn't take much notice. And finally, they finished their meal, and they walked past our table, and they stopped. And the guy said, "Rick, Keith." We went, "Yeah." He said, "Can I just say how wonderful it is that you two have made up and are friends again?" And we looked and went, and Keith said, "No, actually, we're not. We're just meeting today because I'm suing him." And the guy went, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And off he went. And we just howled laughing. I mean, we thought, this is ridiculous. How can, people still remember stuff that they read in the 70s? And Keith and I remain good friends. We were trying desperately to put a tour together of him, John Lord and myself. We were working really hard on it.
Yeah, I played the event that you did, the Sunflower Festival with John Lord, and I realized it wasn't that long afterwards that he passed away.
John. Well, it was fact. 2 weeks later, John and I were going to be working on an album, and John said, "Look, apparently I'm, this is his, he said, apparently I'm not very well. So can you hang on until I'm better? So I said, yeah, of course. And 4 months later, he'd gone. You know, but at that Sunflower Jam, Keith was meant to be there as well. But Keith was having so much trouble with his hands that he just couldn't do it. It was all very, very sad. So I lost 2 phenomenal friends in John and Keith, and I did one of the eulogies at John's funeral, which was really hard to do, and to be a part of Keith's memorial concert in Birmingham. That was tough as well. Keith's funeral was very difficult because, you know, I watched his grandchildren come in. When somebody dies, I mean, John had, you know, obviously pancreatic cancer, was very, very ill. And so when John passed away, although it was terrible and a shock, it was not unexpected. Obviously, Keith, you know, I couldn't help but sit in the church saying to myself, I was sitting with the journalist Chris Welch, who used to be editor of the Melody Maker, and I sat and I said, you know what, we shouldn't be here. This actually shouldn't be happening. And that was the hard thing with Keith. You know, very, very sad, but I lost 2 great friends.
I can't even really put into words how much Keith means to me. I never got to meet him, but I talk about him on my show all the time. I've done a couple of tribute shows about him. I never got to meet Greg. On the other hand, I've met Carl about 13 times, but during that particular tribute performance, you also mentioned that you guys had worked on some material together, and I was wondering if the estate would allow you to put that out, because I know that Robert Berry had a similar situation where the estate said, we want Keith to be remembered as a composer, and essentially Robert Berry had to re-record all the material.
Yeah, we were working on some ideas, but nothing was ever recorded. Because Keith was having serious trouble with his hands at the time, so everything just kept getting put on hold. But we had great ideas for concerts and things that we wanted to do. Sadly, it was not to be, and obviously it can't be now. But you know, I've got lots of wonderful memories of times with Keith, lots of great stories. And it's just one of those sadness things that if somebody had said to me 10 years ago, you know, I'd be, you know, sitting at home talking to you, and we'd be discussing John and Keith, both of whom would have left us, I'd have probably laughed and gone, no, not possible. You know, but it's an unfortunate thing. That's why it is so important musically. I say to everybody, I mean, make the most of it. Don't waste a second.
The very first song that I ever played as part of my training to start my radio career at WUSB was Fanfare for the Common Man. And the reason I did that is that's the first song I ever remember hearing by Emerson, Lake and Palmer in 1977, but I was only 8 years old, and it was used on a TV sports like introduction for the beginning of the show. I don't watch sports. I had no idea what it was. And to this day, I still can't comprehend that piece of music was being played by 3 musicians.
Yeah, it's interesting, the Fanfare for a Common Man, because it's been used for loads of sports programs over here in the UK, and still is. It still is used online. It's one of the most common things used, yeah.
I look forward to the even grumpier old rock star. I will be there October 22nd at the Paramount. I might even hit the one in New York City on the 23rd. I just wanted to say a quick hi also from Mark Vail of Keyboard Mag. Oh, I don't know why my file's cut off there, but we're talking so much about some of his friends, and I love the piece of advice that he gave in there. I don't know if you caught it. He basically said, make the most of it. Don't waste a second. It was such an honor and a privilege to have Rick to myself for a moment. We talked about 25 minutes, and right there at the end, I said to him, had he ever been to the Museum, which is in Asheville, North Carolina? And he said, no, indeed, he had not, but that we have a date. I looked at his schedule, and unfortunately, he's not coming anywhere near Asheville, North Carolina. But I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I will be there on Friday, and I might even make the trip on Monday to go catch the show also at Bearsville Theater up in Woodstock, New York. So it's been my extreme pleasure to bring you this very special interview with Rick Wakeman. I've been kind of mentally asking the universe for this since I met him in 2017. Why don't we take a moment to explore some of the things that we were talking about? This is Rick Wakeman and John Lord from the Sunflower Jam.